Talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Russia seems to be dominating all of the news this morning.
Well, yes, in several ways. Starting with the fact that the CIA has now concluded not only did Russia try to intervene in the election, but they intervened in favor of Donald Trump. They've given a report to Congress to that effect. A bipartisan group of senators have said this needs to be investigated on an independent and fair-minded basis. But the president-elect has dismissed this whole finding as ridiculous, and this sent a lot of alarms through Washington because this is part of a pattern we've seen from Donald Trump throughout the campaign, which is to say, facts are what I say they are. He offered no evidence to dismiss the CIA findings, but he just says they're ridiculous because they don't fit with his worldview. And he thinks it's embarrassing if there's any hint that Russia helped him in the election. So the issue is not just did Russia intervene? The issue is how does Donald Trump deal with information that he doesn't like?
Well, it's the same way when you said there were 3 million illegal voters in the election with no backing of any facts or any evidence.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, you can operate that way as a candidate. You can make these promises. You can spin your tales about what the world should or might look like. You can't do that as president. As President Obama is very fond of saying, when you're president, reality has a way of waking you up. You can't deny reality. You can't deny economic trends. He can talk all he wants, to take another powerful example, about bringing jobs back to the industrial Middle West. But the fact is that almost every economist has said repeatedly that that's not going to happen, that these jobs are lost because of technology and productivity and foreign competition, that these laws of economics are going to be far more powerful than any president's ability to change them. So, and here's when you look at the CIA dismissing the CIA's findings, this is a president-elect who has no experience in foreign policy. It's not as if he's a John McCain or a Joe Biden, someone who spent decades operating in Congress on foreign policy. He has none. In fact, during the campaign, when he was asked at one point, how do you know about foreign policy? How do you learn? He says, well, I watch TV shows. And so to just have such a dismissive attitude toward the CIA, but it's in keeping with Trump's mindset. He's done the same to journalists who contradict him. And this is really a dangerous, in the view of a lot of people here in Washington, including a lot of Republicans, a very dangerous approach to the presidency.
Well, I think it should scare us all to death that the president-elect said over the weekend, I don't need intelligence briefings. What, I'm a smart man?
Yeah, I mean, he does need intelligence briefings. As I say, this is not a man who's steeped in foreign policy, who has traveled the world and talked to foreign leaders over many years, or dealt with these issues as a member of Congress, or even as a governor. He never has dealt with any of this. These are highly complex, highly delicate issues. Sure, he has some experience as a businessman, but the metrics of business success and the metrics of diplomatic and political success are very, very different. And that's partly why people are so alarmed at the possibility of his choice of Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. Tillerson is a chairman of ExxonMobil. He's dealt for many, many years with Russia. In fact, he's so friendly to Vladimir Putin. Putin gave him a big honor, the Order of Friendship, 2011. Marco Rubio, Republican senator, said yesterday, being a friend of Vladimir Putin is not a good recommendation for a Secretary of State.
Absolutely. I think there's serious concern about the influence of Russia in the upcoming administration.
Well, look, there's nothing wrong with saying we want better relations with Russia.
Of course not.
This has been a source of, for generations now. Many American presidents have sought better relations. Ronald Reagan, to take one very good example. I was with Ronald Reagan in 1988 as the New York Times correspondent when he traveled to Russia and forged a better relationship with Mikhail Gorbachev. This was in our national interest, and it was a positive step that Reagan took. But the alarm here is that Putin has displayed such an aggressive attitude. Here's a guy who and next, part of a sovereign country of Ukraine next door. He annexed the Crimea. He has intervened in Syria in very damaging and destabilizing ways. He's been saber-rattling in the Baltics, vulnerable members of NATO with Russian military operations on their doorstep. And so the concern is that Trump and Tillerson, with their attitudes toward Putin, would be encouraging his aggressiveness. They would be, winking at it. And this is not a good basis for future friendship. Friendship in and of itself with Russia is a good idea, but not with a man who has shown such destabilizing and aggressive tendencies. And Trump and Tillerson seem to be accepting him. Tillerson, for instance, there have been sanctions imposed on Russia for their attitudes toward the Crimea and Ukraine. And Tillerson, as chairman of ExxonMobil, has opposed these sanctions because it's made it more difficult for ExxonMobil to do business in Russia. So Tillerson, if he is named to this post, and I'm not convinced he will be, because I think it's entirely possible he will not be confirmed. You got to remember the Republicans have only 52 seats in the Senate. That means if they lose 3 and the Democrats hold firm, nominee could be in trouble. And I expect Tillerson, if he's named, to face very, very tough questioning, including from a lot of Republicans.
Be interesting times ahead, certainly. Thank you so much, Steve Roberts, ABC News political analyst. It is 8:11 here at KTRS, the Big 550.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
KTRS and the U.S. Marines are playing Santa for their 2016